Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast. Hello and welcome to another edition of Musical Talk. I'm Thos Ribbits, and clutching a programme for a musical where the typographers have made one tiny error, I'm looking desperately to find my way around the landscape in this musical. What I really need is the map of La Mancha. Maybe I should look in the score of the musical Funhouse. Well, thank you for joining us again for this week's episode of Musical Talk, where, if you were listening last week, you'll know that this week we're going to be listening to the second part of that conversation that I held with Sam Cochrane and Alex Prescot, two of the people involved in and with Giggle Mug Comedy, who have, over the years, produced a number of shows, all of which have been excellent. Scouts the Musical, their improvised musical, Timpson the Musical, which we've reviewed and loved here on Musical Talk before, and Runesical, which is the musical under discussion this week and last week. Well, as I explained last week, this is a show that you could have seen live at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe in 2022, and it's a musical based on the online game Runescape, but you don't need to be an expert or even ever to have played that game online to enjoy the musical. I speak here from experience. But the gimmick, if you like, or the conceit of this musical is that it is a choose-your-own-adventure musical. When we saw it on stage, we got to the end of each scene and we needed to decide as an audience which of the options being offered up to us we should follow. And then that took us through different routes through the narrative, which meant that if you went on one day, you would probably see a different show to the one you might have seen the day afterwards. Splendidly, Sam and Alex and Giggle Mug have recorded a version of Runesical as a film and then chopped it up, worked out an algorithm and then plopped it onto YouTube so that you can watch the musical in the same way. It is an interactive musical on YouTube where you can choose your path through a number of different options. Which means that once you've watched it once, you can go back and choose to make different decisions and see different jokes and hear different songs. It is a genuine set of different musical options for every journey taken. I think that's rather fabulous, and I think the show is rather fabulous. I've seen it live, I've seen it online, and I've enjoyed both versions. So, what are we going to get today? Well, we're going to hear the second part of that interview with Alex and Sam, and on either side of that, two songs from Runesical the Musical. And that sounds like a pretty satisfying bill of fare to me, so we're not going to hang around any longer than we have to, we're going to go straight in. Here is another song from Runesical, and it's one of my favourites.
How dare you trespass?
Oh, I've heard about this creature. It won't attack straight away, but it will try and weaken us first.
Weaken us how?
Just don't let it get to you.
Hello, I'm gonna turn you into taxidermy. Swap your head with a pigeon, huh? Pigeon face. I'm gonna break up your parents' marriage, then I'll be your stepdaddy, and I won't show up to your school play. Ooh. I'll turn you into a cushion and sit on you. I'll use your skin as leather for my new pair of shoes. I'll put you into a cage in my one-man human zoo, and I think that you go nicely in my human fondue. Come on, I'm a freaky troll. I'm a freaky troll. I'm a freaky troll. Asthmatic troll, I'll get you a role in a Fringe musical. Pays the rent, but it's not a career. I'm gonna stream your favorite shows before they air in
It's a musical. We need to talk about this. And I think that the two of you are the songwriters as well as the book writers for this, which wasn't the case for Timpson, and I don't think is the case for Scout. So this is your collaborative baby in that sense. Yeah. And you're doing the music as well as writing book and lyrics.
Yeah.
So how did you decide it was going to be the two of you? And then what is your process for writing songs?
I wonder whether we have the same answer. So from my perspective, we wrote all the songs before. So there was kind of the arc of it and the songs, which I think the outline, I think you did the first one. Yeah. And then we were like, there'll be a song for this and song for this and song for this.
Your nexus points
and
almost,
then,
yes.
Yeah. And then we'd meet up and it would depend who kind of came with the initial, maybe these chords, because Sam plays a bit of ukulele.
I play a bit of a few different instruments, but I play them all badly. Like, I never do them on stage at all.
I can play the back of a violin, yes.
and generally, I think it would either be on a ukulele or not on an instrument.
Just singing the melody, because as well with improvising, we're both very used to hearing the chord and being able to improvise melody at the top. But also, Sam has a in my head at least, fairly comprehensive knowledge of all musicals. So it would often be I'd play something or try some chords, and you'd get up a YouTube video and be like, a bit more like this, which ranged from a very helpful to kind of like, how am I meant to? But then kind of came, and I think it helped as well with
you make up your own style as well. Eventually,
and kind of that we often went into a song with, these are some reference points that I think could be quite fun to have as a bass line, or as we'll nick the chords from that, or the vibe, or a little lyric
homage, I believe is the word you're searching for desperately.
An homage to these certain things. And then so often we'd meet up, and I think we'd meet up and write roughly a song
a song a day.
Yeah.
We did it I think we did it, really, we're kind of writing it over the course of about 3 months. 2 months, 3 months, because at that point we had a deadline. Fringe 2020 was going to happen.
I remember those days.
So it was September to December 2019.
So we were applying, and also we told at that point Jagex, who make the game, we kind of said we're going to have this draft done by this date. So we were kind of meeting up twice a week and doing a scene or a song each time we met up.
And I think also we have a bit of a thing with lyrics, because we do so much improvised musical, that we don't want the lyrics, they should be too difficult to improvise.
Oh, indeed.
So therefore there's some stuff that's lyrically, like internal rhymes and stuff and vowel rhymes, because we want to push it slightly beyond what we would be able to improvise.
Well, there's some magnificent flourishes, I think. I actually do think your lyrics are excellent, because you do that thing which I think so many people can't do, which is put in jokes.
Right.
You know, even down to, from Timpson, one of my favourite lines is, how do you avoid a scandal when you're as useless as Achilles' sandal? I appreciate that's... you are involved in the lyrics for Timpson.
I was, So
did you write that bit?
I actually can't remember.
Diplomatic answer.
I'll take it.
But, there's a lot of that kind of... Well, let me pick one from Runesical. There's a fabulous one where Lance's actual title is Lance _ or whatever the number is, and there's a fabulous line, It Tickled Me Pink, which was about he sings that he underscores but he overachieves. And that's a rhetorical flourish. That's fabulous. There's a lot of that kind of stuff in it. There's good stuff. This isn't thrown together. This isn't, as you say, improvised. You didn't just improvise a song as you would on stage. You crafted a song. I mean, let's use these words. I think that's fair.
I think it was important for us to, because it's such a unusual concept for a show, or one that could so easily be bad, which I would also say for all of our shows. They all could.
But every show can be bad. Les Miserables could have been miserable.
Yes, that's true.
And
but
for many of us,
a lot of people would go and that you'd hear Timpson the musical and you'd be like, that's going to be bad. So it was almost like this is the reason we've got to make it good. My favourite quote about any of our shows really was just from a lady I met on the Royal Mile at one point after seeing Timpson, who was like, promises nothing, delivers everything, which I think is just such a nice...
what a great phrase.
Which is just such a cool way to, and like a model for our shows, because I think that is it. It's like you really go in not knowing what this could be, and for us that was so important to spending the time with the lyrics, just making it so that people, at least, whether you like it or not, you could tell that a lot of effort had gone into it.
It wasn't thrown together. And I've seen some trash in my time, and your stuff isn't that.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
But let's talk about the songwriting approach, because I'd like to talk about two different characters that you can see in different journeys, as long as that's not giving too much away. So tell me if it is. But and forgive me, we're back at Freaky Troll. So if you take one route, you meet the Freaky Troll. If you go another route, you meet the Spanish Bandit, I think would be the way of best phrasing him. They have very different songs. In fact, totally different songs. Different styles. One's kind of sort of...
Well, both based on a specific singer, songwriter, pop star. Completely different ones. I don't know whether you might be able to guess.
No, not me at all.
I don't think Freaky Troll. No one ever gets it.
Really? I think it's quite on the nose. But
Freaky Troll's Billie Eilish.
Oh right, okay, fair enough.
Specifically, I think we were listening to Bad Guy and
because
the way
because in 2019
bass
that's when it came out, so it was like a current thing.
And it being basically bass and a bass line and drums and then just vocals.
See, I wouldn't use it, but I'm not the man who'd have got that even if I'd heard the song. I think
but
that's, if it was Gershwin, I might be
But that's an example of how we'd have quite a strong influence in our heads, and then we make something that I don't think anyone ever
clearly
back to that.
And it's a new song, and that's forgive me, Sandy Wilson, who wrote The Boyfriend, very famously used to say that he'd taken a song by Richard Rodgers. He used to take Richard Rodgers songs and then invert them. And he said it out loud, he was quite honest about finding source material that was successful and then working it in a different way. So it was unrecognisable. So it was a new song. So it's not a parody. It's not even really an adaptation. It is a totally new song based on some of the structural basis of another more successful writer.
I guess it's just taking inspiration.
As long as it's not the same song.
No, totally. I think.
Well, who's the Spanish one then? Come on.
It's Enrique Iglesias was the other one.
Oh well,
but again, I guess we got very high with the
generational difference.
Very Spanish, so whereas Enrique is.
It was
more Europop now.
And then generally for the whole show, really, we were kind of like. We something that we do admire, although it might not be either of our most favourite show, in Joseph is the fact that every song is so different, like stylistically, which I just think is so cool. And you don't see, because what you want to do is obviously have a through line of that. You want the songs to all feel like they're from the same show, but at the same time you want them all to be really noticeably different, so that when we do, we've got a kind of mega mix at the end. Also similarly to Joseph, they all stand out, and you're like, oh, this was all very kind of a different experience. So that was the logic.
But we've got these two characters, and so it's the approach to the song. Each of those scenes, and this is one of the points of the widest divergence, at some sense, in the plot. Actually, these are very different scenes. They still serve to take you from A to B because they have to, because that's narrative, and it's normally some kind of I need to get to X, and this character's in my way, and there's therefore, how do you thwart the character? But that's so generic in terms of plot. That's fine. Did you write those songs with the characters in mind, and therefore had you plotted your characters first? Or did you think this would be a jolly song and now I've got the character?
I think, because I think the difference with this...
What do you think?
It being based on the game and us knowing that we had what characters you could encounter in these different places, although, like we said, Freaky Troll is a made-up character, but inspired by the trolls that you could find in
like a natural inhabitant of that world, I would argue.
Yeah, totally. And in the wilderness, being like, okay, there are bandits.
Yeah, there are. Well, throughout the game, you might be walking down a path and a bandit.
Oh, really? It's not specific to the wilderness.
No, and then they don't look particularly Spanish, but they do have an eye mask. And
it has Zorro.
Exactly, and they can mug you, not even in the wilderness. So we kind of smash those two ideas together.
So I'd say, like, what we had really was, we knew who we wanted to sing it, and we knew that there should be a song. I think maybe we had maybe the like Freaky Troll. I feel like we knew that it was going to be I'm a Freaky Troll, and everything off the back of that would follow quite naturally,
and did.
And I think same actually Flamenco de Bandito, I think as well, was like that being a line that we can.
And we probably knew I was going to play both of them, so then could lean into much like Lin-Manuel. I'm not comparing myself to him, but am I? In the way he's very good for writing parts that suit his skill set.
Well, yes, and why wouldn't he be?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you've got to enhance your own casting possibilities.
Exactly.
Right.
So there was, at least in the back of my head, of kind of the selling on character of kind of those things, and also I did my degree was French and Spanish, so some of the Spanish.
Well, I was going to ask about your language because you can.
So
I was impressed.
The little Spanglish jokes.
Yeah, that was a fun one to write because I think we knew there are a lot of pop songs nowadays who have Spanish lyrics, and obviously they all generally make sense. But we thought it would be funny to write one where none of the Spanish that we incorporate actually really
mistake, or
purposeful mistakes and that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's got one of my the Spanish Bandit song has got one of my favourite lines in the whole thing again, but just because it's such a cheeky, bloody lyric, if I may say. You thought I was angry, but I'm getting angrier, and as I eat my paella and drink my sangria.
There you go. In case you didn't realise you were Spanish, just really hit home there.
And I suppose, I mean, it's interesting that you said, Alex, that, you assumed it was going to be you playing those two, but in a way it sort of had to be, didn't it, structurally, presumably, because you're the person who's available for that scene, because presumably other people are preparing for other scenes, and it's the same scene, or rather it's in the same chapter. You can either do X or you can do Y, so it's got to be, I mean, that's an interesting matrix.
Yeah, it must have informed it as well, the song, because we knew that if I was on stage, we couldn't guarantee there would be any keys, as it actually happens.
Tiny Saws
does play keys. You're like, oh, yeah. So then we were like, well, what else could there be? Which might have, probably did inform the fact that Troll is electronic music pre-recorded, and the Bandit is ukulele and guitar, and so I could be playing that on stage. So there's certain logistical things that then do inform the creative process, I think.
Why do you think Freaky Troll was so popular? Because he's the one that people talk about.
And
the song and the performance.
I feel like I'm quite vocal about this, that I feel like Freaky Troll is maybe the worst song I've ever written.
Really?
I think
it's a very simple song, and we weren't sure about writing it.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know whether this one's
I remember one writing day, you just had to leave. I was just like, I cannot look at this anymore, because this is so...
And also when you because we were writing it on piano, it doesn't have that same
oomph.
Yeah.
And so it was then the kind of putting that track together, and then...
It was just the reaction of it. People like loved, and to the point where, I really liked the Bandit song in general, but it was one where you were kind of like, oh, I do hope Freaky Troll appears, because like the audience will really like it, really enjoy it, because it is just so funny and silly. I think that's it, really. It's just soul, and you sell it very well.
You do. It's a tour de force performance-wise.
I don't know if that's a compliment, because some of the things...
Sounds like it's weird. It's just you being weird.
But people loved it, and it is interesting, and it's the same, actually, to compare it to Scouts as well. We had a song that opened Act 2, and David and I both would feel the same.
David Fallon, your co-writer.
Yeah, and we'd kind of feel similarly about that, because it was a rap. It was like a 90s rap, basically. And it's
Thank you for that qualifier, because we all know what that means.
Because for so many people it was their favourite moment, and David and I just went into it like, this is our worst song, and yet it was the one, and it was one of the highlights. And it's the exact same thing again. It's interesting how your work can be interpreted so differently to how you necessarily would feel about it. I think the nice thing was that we kind of, although with both of those, actually, I'd say they were structurally very straightforward and musically, arguably, we were like, let's throw in all our best, the funniest lines we can come up with. Which was probably, and that is probably why people would.
Which is good in a way, though, because it goes, people often forget. Songs in musicals are not just songs in musicals. They are a way of performance. It is a performance. You can you can throw away a marvellous song, or you can burnish an average song. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm not saying the song's average, because I think it's fantastic. No, but I love the orchestrations of it. I loved your performance, and actually, your voice comes on before you do as well. How dare you? Kind of, that kind of sort of. Yeah. It's like your feet arrive a few minutes before the rest of your body. It's very strange.
It's great to see, and I think seeing that version of it as well, because I think it would have grown so organically in front of audiences over Edinburgh, but also in rehearsals as well. And it's like finding things
that definitely are like, oh, what are people laughing? And then it'd be like, what's making people laugh in rehearsals? Yeah. And then the difference of what's making people laugh live, and then it just be
And what is the difference?
I definitely think in rehearsals, something can work night after night, but you might throw it away in rehearsals because you're trying to give people something new because they've seen it.
Fresh energy in the room.
Sometimes rehearsal, it could be an in-joke, it could be a joke off the back of something you did a few days ago, or something that happened at lunch. So whilst I think that energy of kind of trying to find what works, it's important to be like, just because it worked in the rehearsal room, it's more the audience once they're there.
You don't want to do an in-joke as a proper punchline and expect an audience to react to it. It's sort of, generally, I think if any in-jokes stayed in the show, they'd never be at moments when people are meant to laugh. It's just like us kind of doing it to make someone else
self-indulgence is a very dangerous thing in any performance. And I've seen it destroy things.
I think it was a good I think that in many ways, fringe theatre is good, or having like some sort of time restraint to really cut down. And I think we also what is to kind of build off what we were talking about before, fourth wall breaking, things being informed by the audience. We'd have a lot of ad libs and stuff, and all the cast members would have ad libs, and they're great, and we love having them, and like I think some of the funniest lines were made up from cast members, and then we would take them and put them in the script
if they work. Keep them on,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then it was also a logic of
that's the collaboration of theatre, isn't it? Sorry, do carry on.
No, totally. And I think we were just like conscious of when we were doing this run of it again, this sort of final iteration. Okay, what do we want to keep in and what do we not? And we sort of cut it right down and said, and let the cast members know, like, we'd love you to keep this bit and maybe cut this bit.
Because when you're in the eye of the storm in Edinburgh, that kind of stuff might creep its way in, and then you become really fond of it. So it helped, I think, us having that distance and being able to watch and also it was funny when we had the script and then we had a film of one of the final Edinburgh ones when we were looking at what would make the video script, and when it was like, the things that changed that we hadn't even noticed had changed.
Organically developed.
Just slightly, and sometimes it was like, well, actually, there was no point in that. It was just, but I think also sometimes that comes from keeping it fresh, especially over the whole month, and the benefit of it being multi-pathway. At least I felt that because you were doing more different things, it then kept its freshness and it kept you on your toes and especially with having the different audience members, and it always response to Gary Barlow always got me, just the range of responses to something that we wrote as being like.
And actually, we would change it would be different
we'd change the celebrities, wouldn't we? But it would always be something that we thought, this is 80% that the person's going to get.
Yeah, I've heard of X.
Well, you would assume that they'd say Robbie Williams, but also
but why would they
also American audiences wouldn't necessarily make the same link. And it's great, and in the recording, it's maybe our favourite one where he says Noel Gallagher.
Gary Barlow or Noel Gallagher.
The strangest, but he says it with such assurance, just
everyone knows they go together. Like a wholesome marriage. Quick, I just want to throw back to Freaky Troll and the Spanish Bandit. Do you have a preference, either for the song or for the performance or the character?
I think I got to the point doing it in Edinburgh where I'd be like, it'd be quite nice to do the other one. Also, there's like most other musicals, when you've done the same one for 5, there's a bit of a, I'm really comfortable with that one, so if they choose the other one, it'll be. So we had rehearsals in the day sometimes of pathways
to keep that
done.
Fresh, to keep them fresh.
But really, I think they're both so. There is also a thing of Freaky Troll because people that have seen that tend to gravitate towards it. But I am fond of the Bandit as well, and the dance off as well is fun. I enjoy.
It's interesting because I think I really liked the Bandit song, but I think the whole Freaky Troll experience. I'm now if people
surely that's the name of your pop group, isn't it?
I feel like if people are watching it, and if people said to me which pathway should we go down, I'd say Freaky Troll, which is interesting.
Isn't that interesting? It is genuinely interesting. Want to talk about other characters, and you mentioned dance there. I mean, it's not really what I would call a dance piece, but there is movement, but it's the Rod scene I'm going to talk about now, where we get a welcome return of our. Do we want to call them angry fishermen? I think we should certainly call them moody fishermen. Certainly, your fisherman characters appear in Timpson. Terribly, in fact, are plot relevant in Timpson. They save our hero, don't they?
It's a kind of another example of like I don't know, something's going to be a hit with the audience until you do it, and it was like people loved the fishermen, as bizarre and like random as they were in a lot of reviews or audiences talking to us afterwards or whatever. People would say, we loved the fishermen, they were great. And so and the reason, I mean, there was quite an obvious reason to put them in this, which is, and this is proper for Runescapians, I guess, is that there is a song in Runescape in the soundtrack called Sea Shanty 2. And there's not a Sea Shanty 1. And we thought, if we're gonna it's an opportunity to have a fisherman song too, and also because we thought, nice to see that area, I guess, Portsmouth Rim, and go to that and journey there, and then we take the kind of main melody from that song is from the Sea Shanty 2 song as well.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I was looking at the song list, which I found online, and it says Fisherman's Song 2. And I thought, is that because there was a Fisherman's Song in the previous
and
show?
That is, Timpson
or is it Party Fears 2?
It is Fisherman's Song. One, I guess. The Fisherman Song is the song from Timpson. But the bizarre thing is the fact that it's not a Sea Shanty.
I just always remember. So as part of our research, we went to Runefest, which is
there's a photograph of you two online. Looking very dapper.
Short hair, younger.
They said black tie, and we were one of maybe 10 people who actually showed up in suits.
Yeah, and in the many things of seeing the heart of a community. I really distinctly remember that they had a live band, and they played just the first note of Sea Shanty 2, just boop, and the crowd were like, yeah!
Oh, really? Oh, they knew.
The first note, they knew, and I thought, this is a big... Because it is the best known song from within the game.
Yeah, well,
there's that. We do have a few things.
Harmony as well, which the Someone Else song. Oh, and in Lumbridge, because that's where you hear it.
Yeah.
And then the opening song, that's all from the game as well.
It's called isn't it called the Runescape theme or something?
That's what we called it. I don't know what it's called in the.
I don't know.
Oh, maybe it is. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's
Runescapian overture. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an element of taking bits and pieces, and I think logic-wise, us being like, okay, this, although is our second show at that point, the second scripted show, it is a prequel to the Fisherman from Timpson, because this is when they have not express their love for each other. You just get hints at it.
Yeah. I don't think that matters in any way. I think the characters are sufficiently light that you can now... They're a repertory company. You can plot them in any situation, in any kind of relationship.
Well,
I'll
give you a
heads up.
Yeah, a heads up is that
exclusive for Musical Talk.
Our next show, which is written, but I won't say what it is, but hopefully at the Fringe next year, they will appear again for the last time and completing the Fisherman trilogy, which I think of it as Timpson, Runesical, and this last thing. That is.
I hope this. Are they the central characters, or are they just in it? Because if they're
I think
because you want to call it Shanty Matter.
It's their smallest entry.
Oh, is it? Oh, fine. All right. You say that now. We've spoken about how in performance. Well, thank you. Thank you for the tip-off.
Yeah, absolutely.
So putting them in makes some kind of sense, and actually is a wonderful joke for those who know the musical output of Runescape, which I didn't get at all. But of course, if you knew Timpson, they were very welcome, and if you didn't, why wouldn't they be in charge of the rod? I mean, there's a question about whether the rod's there because of the fisherman or the fisherman for the rod, but it made sense in that sense. But they get a cracking song again. I mean, they do seem to be the characters in which you allow yourselves oddly to let rip. Their advice songs, I suppose, is what they give, isn't it? I think, never eat tacos from a bin.
It's a fun, I think it's a fun framework, or at least we could go in thinking, okay, this is going to be another song that is, awful advice, and that's what makes it funny. So how do we frame that differently to the first time we did it? And that one, the Timpson one, being sit in silence and accept it, and being the vibe, and then this to be follow your gut, but don't do it all the time.
Exactly.
Always contradict yourself. Basically,
the advice of the song is stand up for yourself, but don't always. Yeah, exactly. It undermines itself in its own sentence. I mean, that's what I love about it.
And I think it's quite a British thing as well.
Oh gosh, yes.
In both of those sentiments, I think the sitting in silence and accepting it is very, very.
It basically boils down to suck it up, everyone, isn't it? I mean, that's what it sort of boils down to for me.
Yeah, totally.
But it's a very catchy number, this one, with a dance. What I'm going to call the die 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 chorus. Can you? I'm not going to ask you to do it, but is that choreography Did you feel comfortable with your dance? And I would argue that one of you looks slightly more comfortable than the other, and I'm not going to say names, but I suspect someone's going to fess up in a second. And secondly, that is a catchy number, and it feels it's energy giving. Because actually by then you're quite a long way into the plot, and the plot has to start, it's got the sense of starting to resolve, or at least getting to that point where resolution's going to happen.
Yeah.
The fishermen do what they need to do, but actually they are extra, it seems to me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yes, well, Alex...
I did do ballet tap modern growing up.
Did you? Fine. Well, you are a natural mover, if I may say, and both your shows have illustrated that. And Sam?
I did not. And for some reason as well, I am so anti-dance, and yet I'm always doing the dances in the shows as well. I mean, Fisherman in Timpson as well, and the finale. And I'll never learn. I'll always.
Oh no, I think you're doing it on time.
Right.
I had the extra thing of playing the ukulele at the same time. Was
both
a real
times.
both times, because that is such strumming at different times to your stepping, as it were.
Yeah. Well, yes, there's very distinct steps. It is. I would call it choreography.
I'd always say, we don't. Our shows are never really dancey shows.
No.
I would say.
Never say never.
But I don't know.
What was that?
But that's mainly. I guess that's mainly our.
Well, I mean, even with the bandit dance off, there were versions where I do dancing, but it's funnier to kind of do something a bit
something stranger. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but were you aware you were writing a catchy? Not that the other songs aren't catchy, but there's a hook in that one. You don't know. That's actually a pop song.
Well, so I think with that one, quite a lot of the melody is taken from the Runescape melody. So
right, okay. So
it's the chorus, really.
Yeah.
It's the
chorus and the.
Oh, actually, the very first.
Yeah. That's the melody, but then the verses are different.
So the bits about the brothers, that's what we added to it. Yeah. And then the kind of opening,
the fake history of how RuneScape came to be. Yeah, it's quite.
And the melody of all of that. Yeah.
The opening and the chorus are sort of from that song.
Yeah. So I think we had there is a reason why within RuneScape that melody people love it. So it's a good melody. So so I think by putting that in there, even if you don't know the game, I think people think, oh, that's a kind of jaunty tune.
It is. It's this one's got a hook, as I say. I mean, there are a number of songs to take home from the score, I would argue, but there's something about that one, oddly, that really chimed for me at least. Right. So you got Runesical to Edinburgh in 2022, and that's where I saw it and enjoyed it, and as did many other people. What did you learn from that experience? What did the audience teach you about Runesical, which you didn't know, or that you didn't, everything really, because, ultimately the audience in the room are the final arbiters of a show, but they're also often non-passive partners in the production, by which I mean each performance. I mean, particularly in a fourth wall breaking show, but even in other more traditional musicals, they tell you stuff just atmospherically.
I think on the most obvious level, like the multi-pathway elements, that really was something that although we kind of finessed quite a bit in the rehearsal room with having people come in and watch, I think really that was from learning from doing the show itself. But what I'd always say is it's sort of I think it's the jokes, what works, what doesn't. I mean, we cut and we added since then to have this kind of final script. But Edinburgh really is the best testing ground for anything, because
it's oddly a workshop in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but on the biggest scale, because also it's going to be usually the longest run you do of a show, probably.
And I think it's lots of conversations about Edinburgh used to be more of a workshop, but now because of the high costs, it has to be. You have to bring a finished thing, or more or less finished thing. I think the thing that we talk about with musicals is because there are just fewer of them compared to the comedy. So if you can then be, fingers crossed, one of the good ones, it then you do get. I don't friends with lots of solo comedians that find it trickier to get reviewers and press in than. Well, I mean, we contacted a lot of people, but we were really happy with how many people and also Preston came to see it. So I think there is something different about bringing
it's still a trade show, isn't it, Edinburgh? So
and I think it's still
you get more. I think it is the best exposure you could possibly. Well, it's the most exposure you could possibly get. I think anywhere like it
apart
is.
from online.
Maybe apart from online.
It was.
Which is cool. I think that is just the nature of it. But it was, I think, way back. I kind of knew that I wanted to write musicals and take them to the Fringe and film them. Specifically, what Alex was saying about the program size, it's just a hack that I wanted to utilise really, whereby you've got 4 pages of musicals compared to your 100 pages of plays.
Yes, I'm closely acquainted with the way the catalogue works.
David
and Goliath.
And the way that often musicals are the ones that, I mean, name-wise, we generally go for something that people will go, oh, that's mad. I'm intrigued by that. The best example, I think, was with Timpson when we were flyering. Whether people, took a flyer or not, they'd always react. They'd always give something, even if it was saying that sounds rubbish.
But people clock it. That's the point. Yeah.
And I think it's easier in many ways to stand out having, and I think it's criticised in many ways, really, attaching the musical to something. But I think it is a very clever marketing device.
And it doesn't fail. It works. I mean, also, at the end of the day, if the product is any good, and they are, then it doesn't matter. Actually, why should anything be out of bounds?
Because I think also we always do it with sincerity, whereas I think a lot of people, currently in the West End, there's a lot of movie musicals, which is just the movie, the musical.
Oh, I know it. Yes.
Whereas I think we're trying to do something beyond that, where it's like
it's affection.
This is a weird thing, and it's a musical, but it's not just any weird thing. It's something that's like niche enough to bring in an audience, but it's not mainstream enough that it feels on the nose. It's something that people, hopefully every time, would never expect to be a musical, but at the same time could really work. It's a weird, that's why a lot of people will say to us afterwards, after Timpson, for example, would be like, why don't you do a Greg's musical, or any specific shot? But it's so much more than finding something that is a name. It's got to have a potential
as well.
Yeah, and almost from a critical perspective, I think having there is a weird sort of nicheness that you need to find to make it work.
But I do think affection is an important part of what you do. These are not vicious. These are lovely. These are warm. These are it's like sitting in a hot bath. I'm not going to say a warm bath because that has a tendency towards being tepid. It's not tepid. It's warm. It's lovely. And I think you're invited to enter a world, even if you don't know what that world is going to be. And the world then envelops you because it's successfully drawn out. Mm-hmm. And then once you're in that world, then, bring it on. What am I going to see? Next song, please. More Freaky Troll, more Fisherman, whatever it is. More knees. All the things that really make a good musical. Having been to Edinburgh, and it's interesting what you just said, that your sort of MO is always to think about the possibility of a filmed version. I was so pleased when Timpson was there, and of course, if you don't mind me saying, it was the COVID years of lockdown that helped me. I didn't see it in Edinburgh, and I don't remember it.
Sure.
But I'm glad I stumbled on it in COVID, because in 2020 we ran a virtual Edinburgh Fringe. We found all the musicals that had ever been to the Fringe on YouTube and other streamers that we could, and then we reviewed them, and as though that was that year's Edinburgh Fringe for us. And that's where I came across and fell in love with Timpson. And then that's when I clocked Gigglemug as worth seeing. And forgive me, I stand by these words. But so you went into a Runesical in Edinburgh in 22, knowing that there was going to be a film, or at least intending there always to be a film.
Hoping.
I never say at the back of my mind. I think it's a case of, I just think when you have done a show to its full potential, or you've toured it as much as you want to, and I think we've always been quite good at knowing when we should stop touring or stop doing live performances. I just think, why would you not let it live on?
In its legacy version.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And I think for me, I grew up watching Star Kid musicals, and I think that enforced a lot of my taste in comedy and theatre and musicals in general. So I always knew I wanted to film like Timpson, for example. It just so happened that a lot of other people don't do that. Still don't really, even
it's still hard to find film versions of musicals.
Yeah, which is kind of, I don't know. I mean, it is obviously there are expenses to it, but I think it's surprising that even after COVID's not that more people are doing it, but still not that many.
I don't think there's been a sea change at all.
Really?
No,
yeah.
Do you? In real terms?
I don't think.
Well, it gives you a unique selling point. So
well,
you may not want it.
No, totally. Yeah, there's that. But I think it was a very cool experience over lockdown, having just released Timpson before that.
Your timing was impeccable.
Yeah,
quite. In fact, suspiciously so.
Yeah. And having it kind of blow up, and a lot of people, obviously the views and the comments, but also people like writing articles and reviews, and also studying it at schools, which is a cool one. Yeah, which I think is an interesting choice. But yeah, it was really cool because it's accessible.
In the Victorian era, there were no locks.
Yeah, I know.
By Johnny, age 10.
But I think, and the really cool thing about having done that once and knowing how to do it or what to do and what not to do, to have an idea of how this one could work and be a completely different experience was really exciting. It was obviously a big added challenge of having to get every outcome in only 4 shows and to do it well. That, and also I guess the logistics of making it work, but I think we always knew it would be that thumbnail thing of clicking to other videos, and and it's really cool to see it actually, that it has worked really, because there are a lot of things that could have gone wrong, especially as, for example, we were rehearsing in 2 new people to the show.
Yes, it's a slightly different cast you're in, isn't it?
Yeah. And there was no guarantee that the audiences would necessarily get behind it with only 4 shots or whatever, but it was, I think that was certainly, it was what we wanted to do, and we were hoping that if we could get the kind of funding and support to do it, that we would do it, and it's great that we could.
But here's a question for you both. Did you have to, were there changes? Did you, how do you retool a physical musical into, I mean, I should say, it's as you quite rightly say, it's a filming of a live musical, so it's you performing it on a stage. So in that sense, it's the same, but you are overlaying a slightly different need in a filmed structure than you are doing it live, or so it seems to me. Mm-hmm. What did you have to tweak anything? You've been talking about having to think it through, about making sure that things which are dropped in scene 1 are still there in scene 7, whichever route you take, etc. But I mean, it sounds like a big challenge. Was it? let me throw it more generally at you both.
Yes, in that, in wearing different hats essentially, and having
you do that anyway on the stage.
Yeah, very good. And having to
you live your art.
Track of things. And so we had it all in theory before, because really it was all it was a very full on week, and so yes.
I think I'd agree. I think there were things that we cut obviously from that we would do in the live performances, like the deciding who goes where or what pathway happens.
Yeah, the mini games for those things.
I think it was
clicking.
I think it was nice knowing that we would have it was quite fun to put in the wizard to camera moments as an additional thing that is, you get something different out of that, although it being relatively similar script wise.
It's a functional thing. It doesn't need to, in fact, almost if you're being witty there, you're actually distracting from the decision to be made.
There were things that we had to really think about. For example, if the Indian takeaway, Chinese takeaway thing is very much throwaway, this is an example of how it works, how you could do the multi-pathway stuff. Then in the third part, so that's the second part. In the third part, there is one throwaway line about Chinese food or Indian food, which always gets a good reaction. So we wanted to keep it in, but it did mean having to do four different versions.
Yeah, having to lock in choices that then affect videos later on is then more pathways, essentially.
It's a weird one to get your head around and to map it all out with all the different outcomes, but not just the outcomes, but the online outcomes, adding a whole other level.
And like with the mega mix at the end is another one of in the Edinburgh shows, there were references to all the songs you saw that show. So the mega mix would change, and so as Cast constantly told us that you'd get to the end and be like, because doing it every day, like, what did we do today? What did we do today? And then the lines coming up. Whereas in the mega mix, in the filmed version, it's a reference to every single show, so it's kind of a little glimpse of what you could have seen.
It's a teaser, isn't it?
Which does
come
work,
back for more.
Which actually probably works better in that sense, but it was more because if we didn't do that, I mean, we didn't have enough shows to do that. I think it would have doubled the amount of shows that we'd actually need to do it. So it was like we have like a little it's just like a couple of lines, but they're now a couple of lines that include every
and there's a logistical thing of that I definitely learned by doing this, of you can't really cut between different shows in a song because it's really noticeable.
No, of course,
so each song is one
tape.
show.
Yeah.
Or it might go to different cameras, but it's one show. So I definitely had, if I've, in a show, I fluff a lyric and you're carrying on and you're thinking, can't use this take. Because we want a take where all the lyrics are as written. So so that's a funny, I definitely learned so much about sound stuff, and lots of the technical and logistics does then. But then it is very satisfying now seeing the final product and knowing all the technical hoops that we had to jump through.
I think actually this sort of answers that question that I asked earlier of why more people don't do it.
Yes.
Because it's really hard to film a show, and I mean especially a multi-pathway one, but to record any live theatre show, specifically musicals, but I'm sure plays as well, it's just there are so many challenges that you don't anticipate. And that there aren't people to answer those things. Like we had a great tech team involved, but some of the issues that we come against wouldn't necessarily be anyone's job or anything that people.
Or they'd have experience of, so they couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you simply. I've been on this planet for thousands of years, and every now and then Sky or the BBC in particular would broadcast or do broadcast a musical or a bit of theatre. But still in a blue moon. It just doesn't happen very often. And, if it's Sky and the BBC aren't doing it, they are equipped and they know how to do it and they've got histories. And you think, fine,
And I think it's also the benefit of it being clicking through is then you're involved from home. And I think some of the at home kind of, if they just take the production and put it at home, people just feel, it'd be nice to be there. And sometimes I think I've definitely seen lots of recordings that I'm like, I couldn't be here, and it's so good that I get to experience it. But I think sometimes it can be it is a lot of effort, and if you could have seen the production, and I think also you don't want people waiting. I think it'd be great if it happened more, but you don't want people not going to see something live because they're like, it'll probably
I'll wait for
the
the TV version.
So the fact that it's not means that people will still see stuff live, and no guarantee in future.
There is no guarantee that
we'd love to, but there's never a guarantee because it is lots of a logistical thing.
And also, if you don't go and see the live show, and the live show isn't deemed to be a success because people are waiting for the television version, the TV version's not going to turn up,
exactly.
is it?
So it's a bit of a
You've got to have the one to get the other.
Yeah.
So Runesical, the musical of RuneScape, is now available on YouTube in this magnificent find your own adventure through it method, which is the best kind of iteration of what the stage play was. In the sense that, exactly what you were saying a minute ago, that sometimes just watching a recording is a bit passive, but this isn't passive because you have, as a watcher, to make decisions, and it's been chunked into sections, and at the end of each section, exactly as you say, you, Sam, as the wizard, come on and look directly into camera. Also, you have to do that rather wonderful thing that you see on television a lot more, for example, on Antiques Road Trip, when they're announcing who's won each round, the individual auctioneers have to stare into the camera for about 2 minutes, whilst the narrator says, and they made this amount of money, and it's slightly embarrassing. I'm just staring at a camera. And how do you do that?
Because I think that was like a parody of itself, really, or knowingly. There's that famous kind of Black Mirror episode called Bandersnatch, which is a similar sort of thing, but different formula, I guess. Where you have that timer ticking down, and you're just waiting for someone to make a decision, and they sort of say, well, what do you think?
It's very video game as well.
Yeah,
very video game.
Totally.
And that's enhanced by the fact that you've normally got the performers behind you sort of doing that walking on the spot thing, which you see.
So I think we were kind of taking the mick out of that as a thing, whilst also it being serving the purpose of it as well.
Yeah.
But it's very self-aware. I mean, you look like you're doing it. I mean, that's the interesting thing. It's kind of, and almost you can't quite stop yourself from improvising. Because there are a few kind of...
I do say some things.
Yeah, exactly.
None of that. I think there was no script for any of those, but
we also didn't have... We only had about like an hour to do
it.
So I don't think we planned any of them out in advance. So we sort of...
But they fit perfectly. I mean, I've watched Runesical online now. I saw it on stage and I've seen it online, and I enjoyed both versions. But it's so wonderful to have the opportunity to see it again, and it's good, clear quality. It's every word is audible. The performances really live, because there is a real danger sometimes. It's quite passive watching recordings of live shows. It's lovely to be able to see it exactly as you say, but it's still better to have that connection with it. And this is a way of retaining and enhancing that video watching. So I'd strongly recommend it. And of course, the other joy is getting to see the songs which I didn't get to see last year. Now, I did get to see Freaky Troll live, and he was again my choice this time, but I have actually watched it in various iterations to get the Spanish Bandit. So what are your hopes? What are your hopes, both of you, for Runesical Online? I mean, obviously, presumably we're going to leave it there and see what happens, but is it just that you stop now and move on to the next show, or will you...
I mean, really, our hope is just as many people get to see it as possible.
Hurrah!
It's a really cool thing of we're accessing a community that anyone making theatre wouldn't normally get to reach. Like, it's very cool that Runescape and Jagex promote it and help us get the word out, because a lot of, and I think they do cross over really. I think gamers and comedy fringe fans are of the same cloth really, like that, and RuneScape itself is very tongue-in-cheek, I think, so it seems like a natural sort of collaboration.
It's a synergy, isn't it?
Yeah. And people that love things a lot
as well. Fans, yes.
Well, yes. Not necessarily our stuff, but just when they like something, they really like it and really get involved in all of it and all the nuts and bolts. I think it's just a really lovely thing.
Yeah. So I think our hope is really just obviously for as many people to see it as possible, and we hope that people who do see it and enjoy it share it. But it's also so people can see about our other stuff as well, our other scripted shows, our improv, our like podcasts. And to stay tuned for whatever we do next as well. It's kind of just building up a Giggle Mug community from lots of different, very specific communities that we're sort of tapping into a bit.
Strands.
It'd be amazing if a RuneScape player then takes a chance on the improvised musical, or kind of sees the next thing, even though that they then came in because it was about RuneScape, but then they're like, oh, actually, let's see the other musicals.
So how can people find Runesical Online, and indeed Timpson? And how can people find out more about the Giggle Mug?
So you can find us on our YouTube channel, or at least you can watch the videos of Timpson and Runesical at the Giggle Mug on YouTube. You can follow us on all our socials at the Giggle Mug as well. We'll be tweeting and sharing and sharing the link on there also. Yeah, and I'd say I think that's probably it. And we've also got the Bean Spillers is its own socials. It's at We Spill Beans. And I think that's everything. Yeah, I feel like that's everything. But
kind of the next live set is we perform on average about monthly, doing the improvised musical, The Bean Spillers.
So people can get a slice of you in real life.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. And it is very. I mean, if you enjoyed Runesical, it is very similar vibes, I would say.
Atmosphere-wise,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, Sam, Alex, I must say I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've really enjoyed your shows, and I'm really delighted that anyone who couldn't get to Edinburgh on any of the occasions when you've been up there can now at least get something of your performances on YouTube, and indeed live. So can I merely say I look forward to these future projects. I look forward to seeing you both in Edinburgh and elsewhere, but also I hope we'll talk again, because I feel that there's a lot more we could yet discuss.
Absolutely, we'd be up for it. Well, thank you very much for chatting to us.
Yeah, it's been a lovely chat.
Pleasure's been entirely mine. Thank you.
I always thought that my fate was to be alone. Friends are for demons, dwarfs and dragons, but they're not for gnomes. All the people that I meet never stick around, but now I think it's time for me to step out of the background.
Brother,
the other have to make me whole.
nice harmony.
We're on a roll.
I don't know if it's wrong, but I feel I belong, 'cause we're getting along
like a house on fire. I don't know if it's right, but I'll stay up all night, and I'm not gonna tire. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh.
We're setting alive.
It's burning so bright tonight.
I never thought that I'd be more than just my looks. Thank God I spent more time online instead of reading books. Things just got worse when my stepsister moved to town. I'm not okay when I'm AFK, 'cause she just brings me down.
Who needs sisters?
I haven't missed her
Since I first logged on.
I'm Robin Hood.
I'm Little John. I don't know if it's wrong, but I feel I belong. 'Cause we're getting along like a house on fire. I don't know if it's right, but I'll stay up all night, night, and I'm not gonna tire. But the most important thing,
Let's say it together.
we stick by each other's side. Now I've got a friend.
There's no need to hide.
I don't know if it's wrong, but I feel I belong.
Let's go.
'Cause we're getting along like a house on fire. I don't know if it's right, but I'll stay up all night, and I'm not gonna tire. Oh, 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 oh.
We're setting alive.
Burning so bright.
We're setting alive.
It's burning so bright tonight.
Well, there we are, A House on Fire, another song from Runesical, the fabulous musical, by Alex Prescot and Sam Cochrane, who you may know better as Giggle Mug. Do go along to YouTube and find that show. It's absolutely wonderful. I think you'll enjoy it. I certainly did. And go along to the website, gigglemugcomedy.com, where you can find out lots more about the musical, and Timpson the musical, and Scouts the musical, and I can't get that high, unfortunately. There we are. The Beanspillers, the improvised musical. And if you want to see that last one, you can. It's on at Bath for 2 nights on the 24th and 25th of November, so only in a few days after the publication of this episode, and then at the Hen and Chickens Theatre in London on the 26th of November. But new dates constantly are being announced, so do go along to the website and keep an eye out. It was lovely talking to Sam and Alex, and it was also delightful to finally catch up. I've admired their work now for a number of years, and therefore to meet them was a real pleasure. They had a lot to say, and as I hope you heard, a lot of insight into their work, and I rather hope there's going to be a lot more to come. They're both extraordinarily talented people. Well, I think that brings this week's episode of Musical Talk to an end. Yes, I'm just looking at the piece of paper here and it says yes. Yes, it does. It does bring this episode to an end. It's always nice to have prompt notes so that you don't go wrong. So, assuming that we're all agreed that this episode now must come to an end, and I am just taking it as read, but if you disagree, please do send me an email and then I'll start the episode up again. Don't know. Anyway, assuming we're all agreed, I will bring this episode to an end in the time-agreed fashion. It's so completely the opposite of hello, it can only be goodbye. And it is. Goodbye. This episode of Musical Talk, edited and presented by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2023, except for the songs where the copyright remains with the original creators. And my thanks go to them for allowing me to play their wonderful songs in this episode. To find out more about the world of Musical Talk and listen to past episodes, go along to our website www.musicaltalk.co.uk or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and follow us on the usual social media networks like Facebook, Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter. And if you want to follow me on the latter, you can. At Musical Talk Thos. Happy with that?
Very happy.
Ironically, it's just started saying low battery, so that's incredibly good timing.
Yeah, really good.